Good afternoon, everyone. Juan over here. So today we're gonna be talking about VTP Transparent Mode, and the reason that we can use VTP Transparent Mode in a Cisco environment is the following. So basically, we can make the switch independent from the VTP structure. And for example, we just have a new switch and we configure that switch brand new coming from the factory, and we plug the switch in we plug the switch in the network. And for some reason, if we don't configure uh, the switch properly, and most of the time if we leave it as a BTP server, it might propagate the VLANs that we configured on that brand new switches to the rest of the network. And then what we're gonna have and experience, it's we're gonna have a network that probably will go down, and the services are not gonna be available. So we want to avoid that on production environment. That is one of the main feature of BTP Transparent Mode. So today I'm gonna do this little demo that is gonna be showing how to configure the switch on transparent mode, and you're gonna see it on real time. So basically, I do have four switches in here that does not have any configuration. They are brand new switches, like coming from factory or the store that you purchase the switch. And we're gonna start configuring the switches. At the moment, the four switches are on BTP server mode because that's the way it's coming from factory. So when you purchase a switch from Cisco or from any other store, it's gonna be on BTP server mode by default. So basically, let's do that. So let's jump into the configuration right now. And let me just verify something first, just to make sure. Oh, we still have those VLANs in there. Okay, so let me just go ahead and right. So basically, what I'm gonna do is uh, I'm going to do that quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and pick brand new switches because basically I reload the switches before, and for some reason it saved the configuration and the VLANs that I created are still in there. So yeah, we can reload the switches, and basically just to make sure that once we reload the switches, it will be as factory default. But for some reason it didn't work when I reload the switches. So let me just go ahead, and I'm not gonna look into that right now. I know what it's happening, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick brand new switches. So in that way I can show um, the BTP transparent mode, because this is just a simple BTP setup. So it's gonna be quickly. Uh, all right, so I'm gonna pick four switches, the 2960. I'm not gonna pick any layer 3 switch. at the moment. So I'm picking layer 2 switches. Okay. So we pick a straight through cable from switch to switch, and we plug them all in the ports. All right, so yes, right now we have brand new switches. Uh, so if we verify that, actually, we see that the only 5 lines are the one by default. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the switches come as VTP server mode by default. So we're gonna change that right now. So let's do the demo. Let's start from the top switch. Okay. For the top switch, I don't have to configure that as server because it's already acting as a server mode. So I'm going to configure the domain for this switch. Sorry, I just mistyped something here. Okay, so it's changing to the VTP domain name. And I mistype again the domain word. And I have to go into global configuration mode because as you saw the switch uh, respond as invalid input because I'm not in the proper configuration mode. So okay, so it's changing that switch to the Cisco.com BTP domain, and this switch we have to make it client mode because by default is set up as server. Okay, we come into this switch and we just do the same thing on this switch. Okay, and then we change the switch to the same domain as the others. We come to the bottom switch and do the same thing. All right, excellent. So we have the 4 switches, okay, already configured. We have the 4 switches in the same domain. We have the top switch acting as BTP server mode, and we have the rest of the 3 switches acting as client mode. So, but before we start creating the VLANs, we have to change the link to trunk mode. So in that way, the VLANs can travel across the link. All right, so we're gonna do that. in the switches. Okay, so we go into interface FA0/1 and then switch or mode trunk. Okay, so it's gonna change the link to trunk mode. The top switch is going to negotiate that link and it's gonna activate the trunk automatically. We come to the second switch and we do the same thing. Okay, interface FA0/1 switch for mode trunk. All right, so the top switch on that port FA02 is going to negotiate the link and activate the link as trunk. And then we go to the last switch, which is the one at the bottom. We go into the interface and we do the same thing. Interface FA0/1 switch for mode trunk. So once we do that, the second switch on interface FA0/2 is going to negotiate the trunk with the bottom switch and it's going to activate the trunk automatically. So now we are in condition to basically start creating the VLANs, right? So in that way you can see what is going to happen. So since we have these three switches in here as client mode, they will not you will not be able to create any VLAN on them because of course they are acting as VTP client mode, and that's one of the reasons of VTP that allowed that feature for you to propagate VLANs quicker instead of going one by one into the switches as I explained in the last demo. So we go to the VTP server, to the system, to the switch that is acting as VTP server mode, and then we start creating the VLAN. Okay, so we're gonna create VLAN 10, VLAN 20. Okay, so we create two VLANs, VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So we're gonna verify that, and we run show VLAN brief. Okay, and once we run that command, it's gonna show to us that VLAN 10 and 20 has been successfully created. Now we're gonna verify the VLANs in the rest of the switches. So we're gonna see if BTP is doing the work that it's supposed to be doing. So we run show VLAN brief, and as you see, uh, that bottom switch already learned the VLANs from the switch that is acting as VTP server mode. So VLAN 10 and 20 was learned on that switch. Let's go to the second switch and let's verify that. Show VLAN brief. And as we see, the second switch also learned the VLANs from the switch that is acting as server mode. Let's go to the bottom switch and the last one and verify if the VLANs were propagated through the switch. And as you see also, the last switch learned the VLANs uh, through the trunk mode that is connected in that switch that goes to the switch that is acting as server mode. So as you see, these three switches learn the VLANs automatically from the switch that is acting as server mode. So let's see what happened when we change one of the switches, as I was explaining at the beginning. When we change one of the switches as VTP Transparent Mode. So what happened? And you're gonna see that the switch is gonna become independent automatically. So that's why we have to be careful in production when we configure something, and because in that way, if we don't do the right configuration, we can disrupt the service by accident. Okay, so I'm gonna change the second switch to be the switch that is gonna be transparent. Okay, and I misspelled the word transparent. So basically, you see the switch change from be on BTP client mode to be as a switch that is gonna be acting as transparent mode. All right, so let's do the following. Let's create two more VLANs, okay, in the switch that is acting as server mode, and we are going to create VLAN 30 and VLAN 40. All right, so we create the VLAN 30 and 40. Let's verify that. Show VLAN brief. Okay, and as we see, the VLANs were created for us, 30 and 40 on the switch that is acting as server mode. So let's go to this second switch and verify the VLANs. Show VLAN brief. And as we see, that switch also learned the VLAN from the top switch. Now, let's go to the bottom. This time, let's go to the bottom of to the last switch at the bottom, and let's verify uh, the VLANs. All right, and as we see, the switch at the bottom also learned the VLANs 30 and 40 as well. And when we go to this second switch, between the switch at the bottom and the switch that is acting as server mode, we're gonna see the result that that switch didn't learn the VLAN, so it became an independent switch from the switch of the switch at the top that is acting as server mode. So basically, any VLAN that you create in here, if you keep the switch on transparent mode, it's not gonna be learned um, on that domain. All right, so that was the demo today for BTP Transparent Mode, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.